This is Josh Reeves, and you're listening to the Mile High Church podcast. Thanks so much for listening to us. Hey, Valerie Kaur, author of the incredible memoir, See No Stranger, great teacher and presenter on the idea of revolutionary love, is coming to Mile High Church on October 3rd. Come to Mile High and see her here in our sanctuary, or if you live far away and can't travel, see her at home online. Tickets are on sale at milehighchurch.org.
What if the most powerful force for transformation isn't out there somewhere, but already within you? Have you ever considered that? That it's always been within you. And this teaching does a beautiful job of talking to you about that. And when I first came to Mile High, I came in 2006, and it wasn't by choice. I had a friend who invited me because she was in the choir, and I said, "Fine, I'll come." And it hit me immediately. And I was very involved in my previous church, so it's not like I was lost. But it was all those things that didn't really fit all of a sudden came back together. So being the person I am, January of 2007, I started Beyond Limits. And truly, it was life-changing, as I mentioned, but I had a big class. We had over 100 in that class. And what's I'm so aware of now is, and at that time, I didn't know anything about this. Do you remember The Secret? Okay, the movie The Secret came out in March of 2006. The book by Rhonda Byrne came out in the fall of 2007, and I really think that had an impact. Because somewhere people had said that maybe they'd been here and heard the message and said, "Wow, I want to know more of this." But Rhonda Byrne and the people who produced that movie were not the first ones that talked about the mind having some power for us to be able to create. In the 19th century, Madame Blavatsky, who you may know something about, and if not, you can Google, was somebody that talked about this. And then you have Norman Vincent Peale in the 20th century, and he talked about positive thinking. So it wasn't a brand new concept, but it must have been something that people felt they needed at that time. And so it took off. But The Secret was missing something, and so it kind of faded away. So in 2017, Dr. James Doty, D-O-T-Y, published his memoir, and it's called Into the Magic Shop. I think we have and it is available maybe in our store. I didn't check. We had some copies. If you can't find it here, of course you can find it in lots of places. And I also believe it is on Audible for those of you who aren't big readers, let me put it that way. But I want to tell you before I really get into the meat of this talk, that this book was introduced to me by a congregant. After my last talk, Raj Kiramaku, I don't know if he's here, came to me and he said, "Jackie, you need to read this book." And so I did, and I can't say enough words for what it really spoke to. And what I want to tell you is what it really speaks to is what we teach in Science of Mind. It isn't just about the mind. We call it Science of Mind and Spirit. So it goes beyond just the mind, and that's the piece I believe that the Secret missed. They missed the heart. Because without the heart, you can manifest a parking place. You can manifest, and I will tell you, in James Doty's situation, he manifested a lot, but he was never happy with all that manifestation, which we'll talk about. But James Doty's life is like a parable. If you've ever read the parables in the Bible and you think about any of them, it always starts with and a struggle of some kind. Then there's awakening, and then there's a transformation, which is the power of consciousness. And that is exactly what Dr. James Doty went through. He came from a home where his father was an alcoholic, could not hold a job, so they were moving all the time to find somewhere to live, he, his mother, and brother. His mother had had a stroke and was suicidal, so James was spending a lot of time as the caregiver for his family. And he loved magic, thus the name Into the Magic Shop. And the book starts out with James saying, I lost my thumb. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm reading this and I'm thinking, oh, that poor child, he lost his thumb. How did that happen? It was a magic thumb. And anybody who knows magic, it was a thumb you could put over your thumb and then you could pull things out. You could pull out, so that it looked magical. So James wanted to replace that, and he was 12 years old, so he gets on his bicycle and he rides from the town he's in to the next town where they had a magic shop, and that's where the transformation started. He goes into that shop, and the owner of the shop wasn't there at the time. He was out on an errand, but the owner's mother was there. And James talked to her, and she says to him, James, I'm going to be here for about 6 weeks. If you come every day for 6 weeks, because he had told his story to Ruth, who was the mother, so if you come every day for 6 weeks, I can guarantee your life can change. Now, I want to put a little piece in here that says, I have no idea what the faith tradition of Ruth was. There is nothing in the book to indicate that she was a New Thought person or what she was, but what she taught James was what we believe, and it changed his life. And as I read the book, I've become so aware that writing, very much like The Secret, but that it kind of excites me to see that that's out in the world now. Again, that we're telling people, you can change your life, but you've got to do some work. One of the sad things about Science of Mind is it talks about personal responsibility. And that sometimes is a game changer for people, because for some people it's easier to have somebody else tell them than to have to do the work. But when you look at the lives of some of these people who have really understood this teaching without calling it Science of Mind and Spirit, this stuff works. Doty went on to become, and this is what's so interesting, I told you how his life, he was from poverty, he had a really traumatic childhood. He went on to be a leading figure in both neuroscience and spiritual inquiry from that beginning. So I'm telling you, all of us have that opportunity to shift. But he did realize that the mind was only one part of it. And one of the things we'll look at is that he really got the mind. So he wrote down all the things he wanted, had vision boards, did all of that kind of thing. And I will tell you, he actually manifested much of that. And he was never happy with just that. And so he lost much of it because of what had happened. And then he comes to the awareness, oops, I forgot the part Ruth talked about, the heart. So the first thing we start with is intention, that creation begins with intention. And Ernest Holmes says, there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. Now, isn't that a powerful thing to know? there's a power that we can use. That it isn't some power that's directing our lives and saying, you do this, and if you don't do this, you're going to go to that place you don't want to go to. But it's so exciting because Doty, in his book, echoes that when he talks about the power of intention. And again, the power of intention isn't just, I'm going to write down what my intention is, and then I'm going to really focus on that intention with great energy, and I'll have it. Maybe you will. But without heart, without taking the spiritual heart into consideration, it's a thing. And you may not hold on to it. Does the thing bring you happiness? So Doty, as Ruth taught him everything that she knew about visualization and all of the things, meditation, she was working with him with not just his mind, but with his heart, so that he could really see that he could change his life. And by changing his life, he could change millions of other lives. We know that neuroscience confirms that when we visualize a goal with emotional feeling, clarity, and hear that, it's the feeling, that emotional sense, the brain responds as though it's already happening. And we know that we have been taught that in this place, maybe not in this room, I think it was in this room, part of this, that we're changing our neural pathways. Who talked to us about neural pathways? Joe Dispenza, Daniel Siegel. There are many people who have said to us, if you change your neural pathways, you can change the way things show up for you. And that is exactly what James Doty did. And in addition, for James, for everything he went through in his life, he became a neurosurgeon, not just a neuroscientist, and actually did surgery on people, but understood this whole concept of changing neural pathways. And guess what? Ernest Holmes talks about that. I know that's shocking, huh? And I have a quote from Ernest here for you. So plastic is mind, so receptive, that the slightest thought makes an impression upon it. People who think many kinds of thoughts must expect to receive a confused manifestation. If a gardener plants 1,000 kinds of seeds, they will get 1,000 kinds of plants. Isn't that our basic teaching? And that's what we're doing in mind if we cannot have clarity. And he says it's the same in mind. So I'm going to say, be clear in your intentions first. And then next we're going to talk about the concept of love. And we talk about that from Doty's language, from compassion. And compassion is a form of spiritual practice. He says it's not a weakness, it's actually a superpower. How many of you are using your compassion superpower? If you are not, use it, because we can change the world. We can't I don't believe we can sit back and say, well, it'll take care of itself out there. Our compassion, our love, putting our mind and our hearts together is what can change the world, and it takes one person at a time. So if each one of us could do that, because I didn't see a huge number of hands go up, and that's okay. If we can start working towards that, imagine the world is a different place. James Doty founded at Stanford University the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. We have a slide up here in case you're interested in going to that website, because they do some great work. They have a great connection with the Dalai Lama, who has visited them and spoken to them several times there. And Doty's science shows that love, which is the vibration of compassion, activates our parasympathetic nervous system. And I remember when I was speaking in ministerial school, Reverend Cynthia said, be sure you bring that science in. Somebody out in that audience wants to hear this, so the rest of you can doze off. We have two types of nervous systems. One is the sympathetic and one is the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic is the one that's based on kindness and love and calming and promotes healing. That isn't the one we go to most of the time. Most of us go to the sympathetic, which sounds like, well, that should be the kind one. The sympathetic is the one that we go to fear, we freeze. That's where our main place to go in our nervous system is in that sympathetic. And so what Doty is saying, if we could go to compassion, if we could go to love, we could activate more regularly that parasympathetic. Wouldn't you rather live that way than to live in fear and anger and all of those things? That's our prehistoric brain, that sorry it's there, it's not going anywhere, but we can tame it down. In Science of Mind, Ernest says, love rules through law. Love is the divine givingness. Love is the way, love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. Love points the way, and law makes the way possible. The law is impersonal. It doesn't care. I know it's hard for you to believe that, but it doesn't care. So you got to have love. You've got to have love in there to really activate what you want in your life. And the heart and the mind are a divine partnership. Think of that. The heart and the mind are a divine partnership. Every part of us is a part of God. Would you agree? If we believe that all there is God, that means that's what we are representing. Ernest Holmes said, God has a purpose for each one of us, and that is to be an expression of God. Do you hear me? Every one of us is an expression of God. Are you struggling with that? Every one of us is an expression of God. So how do you want to show up? God is not, don't ever think, oh yeah, I have God with me, and God will tell me I should do this, and God will tell me. Not if you don't quiet down. Not if you don't quiet your mind and go to your heart. Allow the divine to drive you, to move you. It is probably one of the biggest gifts I've gotten from this teaching, is that reminder at that moment when I feel myself going to maybe my sympathetic nervous system or reacting to something, is to bring myself back and say, if I'm a divine expression of God, is that how I want to show up? Because each one of you, has a choice to make in life. It reminded me as I went through this, because Doty talks about the fact that compassion really can help us transform ourselves. So again, the mind is great. You set up your intention and all of that, and then you activate that spiritual heart so that you can have transformation. And it reminded me of a talk I did when I was in ministerial school. I used to go to an assisted living center in Wheat Ridge, and I would talk there fairly often. And one of the talks I did was on Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic. And I finished the talk, and one of the folks came up and talked to me, and they were very disturbed about the notion that magic had anything to do with spirituality. Now, what's interesting to me is that we're talking religion. That magic had nothing maybe to do with religion in her mind. But what I loved about it was I had an opportunity to have a conversation with her and plant the seeds. What she chose to do with those seeds is what the whole issue of the law is. But what I love is, don't think of magic as trickery. Magic can be profound. It can be very profound when we look at it as something bigger than just magic tricks. So to get this transformation, as I said, you kind of need to tie together the law and the heart, the mind and the heart. And I'm going to say it again. If you have not taken a class in a long time, or if you've never taken a class, I truly encourage you, because you will start really understanding what this teaching really is all about. And again, I'll tell you, Beyond Limits was transformational for me. And I think it can be for anyone. You must be open, though, because if you're coming from another faith tradition, it might be a little scary. So I'd suggest just sit by yourself. If Josh will let you, just sit by yourself and do your work. But I just think I can't say enough about getting into classes. So Dodie says, when we open our heart, we access the deepest wisdom. When we quiet the mind, we hear the still small voice. And I sort of scooted past something, because in 2024, James Dodie came out with a second book. And that second book is Mind Magic. This particular book is a little bit more technical. But I have to tell you that it's very readable, and he has practices in it and all kinds of things. And these would have been things he learned, I'm sure, at a very beginner level and has now developed from his friend Ruth. But one of the things I want to share with you, too, about how this principle works is, I told you he did neurosurgery, so he would remove growths from people's brains. And one of the ones he mentions in this second book is a 4-year-old who had a tumor. And the little boy called it his ugly thing. That's how he described it. So he said to James, you're going to remove the ugly thing. So he takes him into the surgery. He's on the surgical table. He's doing the surgery. Everything appears to be going fine, and a bleeder happens, and he can't get it stopped. So quickly in his mind, he knows that if he doesn't stop this child is going to pass. But what he does, he uses this principle, and he goes into his mind and pulls in his heart and says, okay, I'm going to know exactly what it is I need to do, and it came from love. And he goes back into the surgery and is able to stop the bleeding, and that little boy lives. And when he's in the recovery room, he says, you remove the evil thing, the ugly thing. And I thought, that's the power. It's not arrogance. It's understanding there is a power greater than any of us are in this universe, and we can use it. But we have to combine our head and our heart to really make it work. Dodie says that when we open our heart, we access the deepest wisdom. When we quiet the mind, we hear the still small voice. So I hope you see that the magic is in you. It's in you, it's available to you. You are not your conditions. And James Dodie certainly knows this. He wasn't his conditions, he wasn't his past, and we teach that. You are a divine being with infinite creative power. Do you believe that? Good. So, understand, Ernest said something that I was so glad to find something that Dodie said to kind of balance it, because Ernest said, change your thinking, change your life. Everybody's heard that one, right? And Dodie would add, open your heart and you'll change the world. And I love that. And here's a quote from James Doty as I begin to close. The head is powerful, but it can only get us what we want if we open our heart first. So the head is powerful, but it can only get us what we want if we open our heart first. I really encourage you to think about that in this teaching. Now, I have a little epilogue, because as I was working on this talk, as I said, I probably read the first book a couple months ago, and then the second one I read, I'm going to say, 6 weeks ago. And so I'm finishing up things, and by the way, we have pictures of James Doty here that I think probably our wonderful production team show, but you know, I don't have eyes in the back of my head, so I don't know what to... As I mentioned to you, the Dalai Lama is very supportive of the organization that James started, and then there's a picture of James. But as I'm getting things together, I discovered James Doty transitioned on July 17th, 2025. And my heart broke. And then, here's the beautiful part for me. Yesterday I did one of my retreats, my semi-silent retreats, and it was on the immortality of the soul. And what perfect timing, because what we teach in Science of Mind is your soul is immortal and eternal. And so what that means is it transitions to another plane of existence or to another level, to another spiral. So you know what I know? I know James Doty's still out there doing his thing and showing people or whatever, the compassion, the love, the transformation possible in this lifetime, in whatever lifetime he's in. So, thanks for patiently listening today. And now what I'm going to do is ask for our practitioners to stand, please. And what I'm going to do is ask all of us, with our practitioners surrounding us, sort of consciously supporting, for all of us to repeat this affirmation that I have. I am the alchemy of love and law. I am the heart and the mind united in truth. I am the living magic of spirit in motion. Let us pray. Divine, 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 the divine life that fills each one of us, that is always available, that loves us in spite of how we may show up sometimes. God is all there is. I'm so thankful for the truth that connection of the power of our mind and the love of our heart combined can change lives and change the world. I'm so thankful for the gift of this teaching, how it unites these principles and can take us into every day of our life. And it's not that it's perfect, but we know how to handle it. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I know this is unfolding right now, so I can let it go. Thank you, Spirit, and so it is.
Thanks for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. To make a donation, please visit milehighchurch.org.